Hello and welcome to TYT Community. I am your host, Fitzgerald, and we have a great show for you tonight. We got tons of stories from electronic cigarettes to wildcats in Arkansas. But first, let me introduce my wonderful power panel. Everybody stacked for my debut show. Lucy!
Woohoo! Throat punches are coming tonight.
Great. I'm glad you could join us, and I'd just like to introduce the rest of my panel. Lucy!
So awesome. Everybody out of the way, so I could be the only panelist.
That's right. It's a two-person show tonight, guys, but we got great stories ahead for you, so why don't we just jump right into it? All right, first I want to start off with a very special article. It turns out that smoking among teenagers has actually been on the decline lately. And one of the reasons for that decline is the increased usage of electronic cigarettes, or e-cigarettes, also known as vaping, also known as electronic vaping. In fact, between the years 2011 and 2013, according to the CDC, smoking among high school students fell from 15.8% to 12.7%, while electronic cigarettes had an almost identical increase in usage among that same age demographic. Electronic usage went up from 1.5% to 4.5%. So we all know that kids shouldn't use electronic cigarettes, and in general, they shouldn't smoke at all. I mean, some kids probably should, but those are like rare isolated cases. I just want to ask my panel, is this overall a positive thing, or is this
This is actually really upsetting. This is actually really upsetting for those poor tobacco execs who have to deal with very less money. I guess it's a step maybe in the right direction. Like, oh, they're not smoking actual cigarettes. But I don't know. It's like giving up, I don't know, sugary drinks, but turning to over-exercising or something. You're just trading in one vice for another. So, I don't know. I don't know how to.
Well, I mean, it does kind of support what a lot of e-cigarette naysayers are saying, that a lot of young people will switch to electronic cigarettes, and maybe that could be a gateway to tobacco because they both contain nicotine. But it's a decline in tobacco use, and gateway arguments from the government have never been true before. I mean, marijuana is supposedly, and as I'm sure you've seen in your personal life, Lucy, everybody that you've seen use marijuana immediately jumped to heroin the next week. So I think it's a positive, but it's still not good.
Don't ingest those electronic cigarettes. Don't shoot those in your veins, guys. Like, that's, I guess, the moral of the story. Keep the electronic cigarettes out of your veins. Keep the marijuana cigarettes out of your veins. I don't know. I mean, it's just a matter of which is a little bit less bad. Like the lesser of two evils. I don't know.
I mean, look, the way I see it, and I don't want to beat up this point too much, is that the increase in electronic cigarette use is basically offset by the decrease in smoking tobacco. So if kids are choosing electronic cigarettes, like, you still don't want them to use nicotine, but it seems statistically right now electronic cigarettes are a much safer alternative. So
it would be
say it's a positive, but it's kind of a downer because kids tend to ruin everything, and I'm sure this will force certain people in power to pass laws against electronic cigarettes, even though I think they're part of the solution when it comes to tobacco and not the problem.
I'm actually from a really small, like, backwoods town, and I would be interested to see how many of those kids, like, went to, like, chewing tobacco instead of smoking cigarettes, or something that's easier, because like smoking cigarettes is hard, especially when you're in school, but you put a little dip in your jaw and you're good for the day. So that would be interesting to see if that increased or decreased with the electronic cigarettes.
Well, you should read this study. All right, are we ready to
I'm
move on?
American. I don't have to read.
You don't have to read, especially nothing from that commie government organization, the CDC. All right, okay. Are we ready to move on from this story? There's not much here. It's just an interesting statistical anomaly. Are we ready to move on? Okay, I need a signal. This is a democracy. All right, so I'm gonna jump around. I want to do a story that was covered on the main show, but I want to get you guys' take on it. And that's the story of the Arkansas, the Arkansas governor. As many of you know, he's leaving office this term, and upon him leaving office, he actually pardoned his son for a nonviolent drug crime. Now, it's actually at the tail end of a trend for him because he's actually been pardoning a lot of nonviolent drug offenders or people who've been caught for possession and possession with intent to sell over the course of his governorship. But some people are rubbed the wrong way by him pardoning his son on his way out the door, like it's a lame duck pardon. So, Lucy, how do you feel about governors pardoning their own children for their horrible crimes against the state, like possession with intent to sell?
Well, the true crime there is that he wasn't going to get taxes. He wasn't going to give the state his taxes. That's the true crime there. No, but like he's been pardoning people for these non-violent drug crimes. So of course he's going to pardon his son. Are you kidding me? His son didn't do anything. If his son did something violent, I'd be like, are you fucking kidding me? He needs to be taught a lesson. But it was a non-violent crime. I don't think non-violent offenders should be put in prison. So I'm fine with it.
But you don't think it's a little weird that he pardoned his own kid? Like he did pardon a bunch of other people, and that's why I'm gonna come out on your side. I think it's an overall net good, but like it's still kind of like shady that like maybe this was his plan all along. That the reason he wanted to pardon I hate saying non-violent crimes because they're really also victimless crimes. Like nobody is hurt by you consuming marijuana or you selling marijuana, so they're also victimless crimes. But he pardoned a bunch of people. It's around 700 pardons that he issued throughout his administration.
I
And
would I would agree with
no,
you that maybe it was like some sort of giant conspiracy. Had his son like been sent to jail like the first day of his governorship, and he's like, I got a plan now. Watch this, and they're gonna think I'm awesome for this, but this is my whole plan. Like, I'm gonna imagine his son was probably just recently sent to jail, like the day before. You know what I mean? He pardoned him, or like an hour before he pardoned him, and he was like, no, it was a nonviolent crime. And as the saying goes, it's all about who you know and who you blow. And it just so happened that the son knew the governor. So I don't know. I'm okay with it.
right. I mean, I'm gonna come out okay with it too. I just want to point out one specific thing: is he was actually arrested and convicted 11 years ago, and if you subtract 11 from 34, you get his age, which is 23 at the time. Like, how many of us have made a dumb mistake when they were 23 and don't have a governor in power, or don't have a governor like this to pardon people, even those who are not necessarily his son? Like, a lot of people in America have felonies on their record from their teens to early 20s that had no victim, and they ruined the rest of their lives. They ruined their jobs prospects. It's so
If I
like
was,
that. I was gonna say that's why I think it's an overall good. What do you think?
mhm. Well, if I was the governor, like my very last day, I'd be like, non-criminal, you're pardoned. Non-violent, you're pardoned. Non-violent, you're pardoned. Like I would just like get them all. I'd be like, hey, any non-violent offender, come on down to the state capitol. I'll get you hooked up real quick. Pardon, pardon, pardon. Like I would just start giving out stamps like they're going out of style. Just be like, watch me now, guys. You want to make a stink about me pardoning my son? I'll free everybody from prison. I don't even care.
All right. So I would move on, but I just want to add one more point. It's nice to see something good out of Arkansas, because if we've learned anything from Jordan French, it is the worst state in the union. All right. So moving on to the next story. He's gonna hate me for that. Moving on to the next story, I wanna jump into something a little less serious, but it's also kind of serious, if that makes any sense. Recently, there was a scientific study that finally settled the age-old question of whether or not video games and violent movies cause violence in real life. Now, as I'm sure many of you will be shocked to find out the answer to that question, which is that video games, there is no correlation or causation from video games to violent movies to violence in real life. I just want everybody to take a minute and just take that in for a second, because we all are taught from our history books that we had no wars, no murders, and no nothing before video games and movies came out, and this study kind of flies in the face of that. So Lucy, are you a science denier who believes that video games actually do cause violence? And just give me your general thoughts about the study.
Here's the thing. I don't believe cavemen were real. So obviously people just popped up and we were like peaceful creatures pre-media, really. We never talked to each other. We just were like, hey, I'm just kidding. Of course. Why did this study need to be funded? Like, who paid for this? Like, I'm going to be really shitty if you tell me that taxpayers paid for this study. Who paid for it?
That I do not know, but way to put me on the spot.
What an awful host. I demand jump back. No, I'm just kidding. But, like, that's my question. Who paid for this study? Because this is such a bullshit study. Like, really? Pretty sure pre-fucking the TV, there were still wars. There's just read a fucking history book, you'll see, people were violent, people did things, there were rapes, there were murders, there were execution, there's a lot of bad stuff in our history. One movie, like, I recently saw Holiday, which is Akshay Kumar movie, amazing movie. It was really violent, and I was, like, really surprised at how violent it was for, like, a Bollywood movie, but do I think that tomorrow it's gonna, like, go and make everybody be crazy in India? No. It's a movie. People know it. I mean, India's kind of already a violent place, so.
Well, I mean, I would just like to interject some evidence to the floor that might contradict this story. I saw a documentary film about what it was like in Stone Age times. It was based on a family called the Flintstones, and we were actually so nonviolent that we got along with dinosaurs at that time. And that was before that anybody played any type of video games. In fact, most of our machines were hybrid dinosaur and rock-based technology, and that's what I think flies in the face of this study. But in all seriousness, this is so obvious. Like, video games are not the source of violence. TV's not the source of violence. Humans are a violent species that has only up until recently become less violent overall. And up until recently, we had video games and TV. Like, we had wars, crusades, like all this like awful shit that you can't blame on video games or TV. Probably books. I mean, books are horrible and they ruin everything, but not video games or TV. And the one thing I'll say is for every, like, you can maybe find a case where somebody's methods are inspired by a movie or inspired by a game, but generally, like, those are violent people who would probably do that anyway.
Well, I just want to say, like, oh crap, I forgot my point now. I forgot my point. I forgot what I was going to say. But, yeah, like, I don't know. It's just, here's what I was going to say. I feel like we're coming to a point where common sense is starting to lose the fight. And it's really scaring me because it's like we need a study to tell us, hey, media doesn't actually cause violence. Maybe our violent nature actually causes our media that we like. Like, common sense is starting to lose the fight, and it's just scaring me and blowing my mind. Because how many, like, recent studies have we seen where we're like, Really? You needed a study just to tell you that? I don't know, it just makes me scared.
I mean, I actually think it is intuitive to think because the media the fact that we have media like we only used to see as humans the general area and maybe hear about wars from some other guys. But like the fact that we have a 24-hour news cycle, like you can watch just watch your local news. You'll always see like some guy beat up some woman in some place or whatever. But you could turn on international news and see ISIS and all these scary people doing scary things. Like so the media like makes it seem like they're getting more violent, and then you add in the video games. Like it's like we have two like conclusions that are made logical by our media based on the fact that our media misrepresents the facts. The media makes it seem like the world is getting more violent, and video games are getting more violent at the same time that the world seems like it's getting more violent. Therefore, they could be connected. There could be a correlation, but in fact, that's just not the case. And I'm glad that there's a study to prove it, and I'm sure that this would stop all organizations like the NRA and some Democrats that like to blame video games too for shootings for some reason from using this as an example. Like, in fact, the NRA is putting out retractions right now. Did you get one of those, Lucy? Maybe one.
I didn't actually. I see all the repeal the Safe Act, but I didn't see any. We're sorry, love the NRA posters up. So
All right, so I'm assuming we're ready to move on. We got the video game story out of there. I just want to say that Jeff actually quit playing video games for 20 years because he was afraid that it would cause him to be violent, and now he can rest easy and go back to playing League of Legends. Although his character, his level is very far behind the remainder of his friends. All right, so I want to jump to the next story.
wait. Let me just say something. I'm really glad I'm here tonight, so you can't like throw some jabs my way.
I wouldn't do that. But I'm gonna move on to the next story, and we're gonna go back to Arkansas, aka the worst state in the entire union. Oh, what was that noise? Oh, never mind. Yeah, we're going back to Arkansas, aka the worst state in the entire union. It's where our esteemed panelist Jordan French is from, but he's actively trying to escape. It's just that Arkansas like swallows you whole and doesn't let you escape. All right, well, this is actually going to be a nature story. It's a kitty cat story because we here on YouTube know you guys all love kitty cats. And this story is about how a Louisiana man became the first person to kill a mountain lion in the state of Arkansas since 1975. The hunter, I believe the hunter shot the mountain lion when he was approaching his deer stand, and he told him it was an imminent threat. Like I'm getting the image of South Park saying he's coming right for us and all that. And a lot of people are actually shocked about this. They're like, mountain lions. They're like people love cats, people love lions, and they're actually pretty upset about this. They think that this guy could have handled a different way. If you had a gun and a mountain lion was coming towards you and your stand was shaped like a deer, what would you do?
Well, I don't hunt, but I mean it happens. Like I'm kind of shocked since 1975 nobody shot a mountain lion, but I'm kind of surprised. But up here where I am, bears, like black bears, and they brought back black bear hunting up here. So maybe the DEC is trying to reintroduce the mountain lion to kill some of the something else, and it just so happens that the mountain lion crossed the wrong path and was gonna eat this guy or whatever. Like I don't know. I don't like I wasn't there. If I was there and saw him like hunting for the mountain lion, then I'd be a little upset. If I saw him like shoot the mountain lion as it was coming towards him, I'm like, oh. So I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. We only have his side of the story, so I don't know.
Yeah, and I like the reason a lot of people are upset is mountain lions are super rare in Arkansas. I probably should have mentioned that. Like throughout the 20s, people were hired to control and basically get rid of their population from the state so humans could settle there. So I get why people are upset. But the body of the mountain lion or the carcass of the mountain lion is being sent to a university biolab or a biolab so they could determine where it's from and like all that stuff. Like we might actually learn something from this guy shooting the mountain lion. And like I you can call me a bad guy, say I'm like anti-animal or whatever. But if it's between a mountain lion and myself or a mountain lion and just about any person except for Michael Bloomberg, then I'm gonna say I choose the human over that mountain lion. Like it's like not even a close call, and like that's pretty much it for me.
Well, I'm glad to hear that he's actually gonna send it off. Like, if he was just gonna leave it and let it rot, like I would have been upset. I've been like, really, we could do so much stuff with this. But he's sending it off. It's gonna get studied. I see no problem with it. Like I have no problem with hunting for meat. I have no problem, like hunting to study. I have a problem if you're just gonna hunt for sport and you're not gonna use the meat or give the meat away or do something, or you know what I mean? Like that's when I have a problem. Then I'm like, come on now, don't be an asshole. There's starving people. Use the meat. But yeah, I think it's cool that he's getting it studied.
Okay, so I'm ready to move on from this story. Like I said, Arkansas is just a bad state, and we're actually going to move on to a story about feminism. It's we're really going to have more of a discussion about the substance of the article rather than get into the like nitty gritty of what pissed who off and why did they write this article. But I just wish I had a panel of more white men on the show to discuss this topic properly because we all know feminism is feminists like it best when when feminism is defined by white males. So,
Clearly, what you need to talk about some menstrual issues with only males like that, the feminists love that.
it's like their favorite thing. All right, but in all seriousness, basically, what we're gonna discuss is this new rise of a pseudo puritanism that's been coming up in the feminist movement. And basically, in recent news, we've heard a lot about sex positive feminists. We've heard this from like the Belle Knox story, where she's a porn star and she's proud of it, and she thinks it helps her like express her femininity and like she identifies herself as a porn star, self-positive feminist, which is kind of long, but you get what I'm saying. And there's like kind of a little bit of pushback in like the feminist community, if you can call it that. Um, Basically, a lot of prominent feminists are like kind of like slut shaming or shaming women who take sort of racy photos of their body and like put them on Instagram for an example, or women who are models because they're saying they're only being used for their body. And it's basically like women being against the sexualization of women even when it's consensual. Like I think that's where the divide happens. But in all seriousness, I'm really like not the most qualified person to talk about this. So I will throw it over to Lucy and maybe she'll throw me a beach ball back so that I could hit.
Okay, you ready for some angry Muslim throat punches coming? All right, here we go. Women, what the fuck are we doing? Seriously, why are we shaming each other? Jesus Christ, like, holy fuck balls. Okay, I need to say this really fast. Look, if a girl is happy sleeping around, sleep around, honey. Just make sure you put on those condoms, you use your birth control, you use your spermicide, because I'm not okay with you having, like, 20 kids by 30 different baby daddies. Like, I'm not okay with that because I know you're going to be on welfare. It's just like the area that I grew up in. But if you're okay, sleeping around, sleep around. Fuck it. Just don't even care. Like, back in my heyday, I had quite a few partners, but I don't anymore. Am I going to slut shame? No. Because I did the same thing. I'm comfortable in my body. I know what I like. Sometimes I meet a dude and I'm like, hey, you want to come back to my... Sometimes I meet dudes and I'm like, hey, you're a cool dude, but it's not happening. Sorry, bro. Like, what the fuck? Just, feminist. When did you fall for the trick? Like, Okay, so here's what feminism should be. It shouldn't be like, okay, this is the best way to explain. Think of a piece of pie. Now, the patriarchy, the male-ruled society says, hey, you can only have this top piece. Feminism should say, you want to be naked or you want to wear a burqa, you fucking do what you want to do. You can have the whole damn pie. It shouldn't tell you, no, you can only have the opposite piece. Like, Jesus Christ. Feminism is about being treated equal. Feminism is about having equal rights, having equal protection. There was a time in our history as ladies when a man could be like, hey, I just bought you from your dad, but guess what, bitch? I'm taking all your money and leaving. And we would have been fucked because we had no protection. But now we have protection. And we should be pushing to get equal pay. And we should be not focusing on these stupid little issues of, oh, she slept with Bobby Joe and Eddie Garcia. Like, that girl's crazy. No, we should be focusing on getting equal rights and getting equal protection.
Right. And like there's not much I can add to that. I'm just gonna say that the thing that like was highlighted in the article that we're referencing, which we're not really referencing in this story, which is totally fine, is the targeting of people who quote unquote use their body to make money, like models and like all those type of professions, Instagram models and people like that, and like what I would say is there's more issues. Like I have feminist friends and they're like they don't hate modeling per se. Like they'll point out that most models are white women, and like maybe there's a reason like people in the media are trying to project like the like white as the only beauty in like terms of things like modeling, and there's issues there. But like a model is a successful person, and just because they look attractive and they look attractive on a magazine doesn't mean there's not more to that person or more to that woman. So like I would suggest, and this is again coming from a male perspective, so you could dismiss this out of hand, that maybe feminism is more about the individual, and if you want to be a Puritan feminist, like in your own personal life, then that's totally fine. But like, just don't like judge people. And if you want to be a sex positive feminist in your own personal life and like advocate for acceptance, then don't like judge people who are personally Puritan. And Lucy wants to jump in, so go ahead.
I do. I just want to say I think feminism needs to go back to its roots. I think it needs to go back to when it was fighting for equality for women. Because there are still cases of women who are not getting treated equally. We still have issues like, here's what bugs me is like when I see women slut shaming. Okay, well, you're just contributing to the problem why we have such a bad like rape culture because you're slut shaming. Like seriously, just fucking let people live their lives. Like, why is it so hard to understand? That just pisses me off so bad. Like, if you want to do, just do whatever makes you happy. As long as it doesn't infringe on anybody else's rights, I don't care. You want to smoke a bowl of weed or a blunt every day? Have at it. You don't bother me. Why can't we just go back to what feminism was meant to be? It wasn't meant to be man hating, it wasn't meant to be woman hating, it wasn't meant to be any sort of hating. It was just meant to be, hey, we're American citizens, we were born here, we fought in the wars, we've helped. Can we please get rights now? We've proven that we can do what we need to do, and we're born here and we're just like men. Please give us our rights. We're equal. Like, that's all feminism is meant to be. Oh my God, people.
I just actually want to push back a little bit on your history because you did say feminism should get back to its roots, but this struggle is actually like the one of the first struggles in when the concept of feminism, or really the word feminism, was conceived. Is the only women of wealth were the madams, and a lot of counties you had to be good with the madam to even be elected for political office. And basically, a lot of feminists wanted to distance themselves from the madams. So like Puritan feminism was a part of like the roots of feminism, just like sex positive feminism, because those madams were independent women for the most part. Was what you call it, a part of the roots or of the concept of feminism. So like this struggle's always been there, and I would hope that they would like be able to reconcile it and become more peaceful. And like it's also we saw this in the presidential campaign, that little like dispute between like housewives and women who work. Like as long as you're choosing it and it's like it's a choice of that you make as an independent person, I think that's what feminism should strive for women to be able to make independent choices. But again, I'm a dude and I probably don't know what I'm talking about. Except for my history, I'm totally right on that. Just saying.
Here's the way I view it. It just bugs me. Here's the way I view it. If you believe that all people are equal, like it says in, all people are created equal, like it says in our papers. I had a couple of drinks tonight. Don't ask me which papers. But if you believe that, it doesn't say, like, I don't know. It bugs me. Like, all people are created equal, so why can't we all have equal rights? Why can't women who want to have 20 sexual partners go have 20 sexual partners? Women should be allowed to have menage a trois, too. Have at it, Hoss. Like, you want to do it, you do it. If I don't want to do it, I won't do it. And that's another thing that bugs me, is that there's always this divide. Like, there seems to be this divide among women, and it bugs me because it's like, oh, when you wake up in the morning, some women choose to stay home, some women choose to go to work. Like, just, we're still women. Can we please just not bash each other for whatever reasons? Like, some women choose to breastfeed, some women choose to bottle feed. Who am I to judge? Who am I to judge?
And I just want to point out, and it's kind of dickish for me to point this out, but you're referencing the Declaration of Independence, and it says we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. Just saying. Doesn't say all people, which is kind of the Constitution says we the people of the United States of America. But it's kind of the Declaration of Independence written in a slightly more sexist time. I'm just saying. But like the general concept, I would hope that feminists would strive for just independent choice and like like you have your issues and all that and not be so judgy of other people. But the thing is, it's like feminism when it started had a singular goal, and that was to get the right to vote. And when women got the right to vote, it turns out that they were people and they have differences of opinions and differences of values and all that. So I think that like the slut shaming and all that is a negative, but the fact that women are people and have different like ideas is a total positive. So yay. Close it out, Lucy.
Okay, let me just say, changing men to people, pretty easy with some whiteout. I'll sneak into the wherever it's kept. I'll put some whiteout and be like, all people are created equal. It'll be beautiful. It'll be wonderful. No, but in the end, you just gotta remember, people are people. If it's not bothering, the only reason you should care when somebody is doing something, if it's going to directly affect your rights. Like, that's the only, if somebody decided, oh, hey, I'm going to drive my car into your house. Well, yeah, then you should care because they just crashed their car into your house. But if it's going to directly affect your rights, that's when you care. If a woman wants to sleep with 20 dudes, it's not affecting me because I'm not sleeping with her. I'm not one of the 20 dudes. Sorry. She may want this, but I'm not sleeping with her. That's all I'm going to say.
Right. And I'm ready to move on. I just have to make one unfortunate joke. You referenced stealing the Declaration of Independence, so insert national treasure reference here. Come on, Nicolas Cage, where are you? But yeah, I'm ready to move on. Feminists would decide whatever you want, but like be nicer to each other. Everybody in general, just be a little nicer to each other. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying. All right, so we're gonna go to the final story, and this one is probably my favorite. As you guys know, we were off last week, so we couldn't give you the play-by-play of the 2014 election. I'm sure our progressive audience would love to hear our analysis of the Republicans like whomping the Democrats in the last go around. Maybe later we'll do questions, but I actually wanted to do the 2014 election, but maybe from a different perspective than you've heard before. Now, I got to give you a little inside baseball. A lot of us on the show are friends, and Jordan and I got into a slight dispute about whether voting is actually worth it. And of course, I, being the asshole that I am, came on the side of it's not worth it. But one of the points I wanted to make is, in particular, in my district and in many districts across the country, voting actually doesn't matter. And I present today evidence from the Thomas Jefferson program in public policy at the William and Mary Foundation or whatever. Whoever they are is not important. But basically, of an analysis of about 5,800 state legislator seats, and since Congress isn't passing a lot of bills, your state legislature really matters, that only 57.41% of all the state legislature seats were actually had an opponent. So that means about 43%, I'm not great at math, but about 43%, a little more than 42% of the state legislature seats, that's your state assembly and your state senate, were actually uncontested races. And I actually I didn't run, my mistake. And I actually live in one of those districts that happens to be uncontested. And I asked people on the panel, we were supposed to get maybe a few more people on the panel to show this example, to check if their district was uncontested. Lucy luckily did her homework because she's a wonderful woman. But yeah, like, is a democracy really a democracy when 43% of your local seats are completely uncontested? Forget about districts that are unbalanced and like there's no way a Democrat could win anyway. Like, there's not even anybody running, or like there's no competition. It's one name on the ballot, and then you can write "go fuck yourself" in the other in the write-in section. But other than that, what option do you have, Lucy? You want to talk about your experience looking at your state legislature, or legislator?
Yeah. I actually had no idea who my state legislator was because I was like, oh, I don't remember voting on that. Turns out he was the only one. I'm the 120th in New York. He was the only guy running. I do, however, remember that somebody was running for sheriff here, and they were the only name. So I wrote in Vladimir Putin underneath because I was like, oh, he needs a little bit of competition. So yay, Vladimir Putin got one vote for Oswego County Sheriff's Department. Yay. No, but like it's just I don't know, it's like it's crazy to think of how many of those seats, and like I've never even heard of this guy before. Like maybe I heard of him one time 4 years ago when I was in high school. Maybe. But other than that, like if he's been there for four years, probably more than 4 years, just chilling in that fucking seat, like I think it's time that he has a little bit of competition. So next year, or next election cycle, I will run on the throat punching campaign. Like this, but seriously, no, it is really, really shocking. And like I don't even remember his name on the ballot. I don't even remember it like being like, hey, BT Dub, this dude's running. He's running unopposed, but here's a little write-in spot. Please write somebody's name in. But I don't know, it's crazy.
So the crazy thing is I personally have actually only voted 2 times in my entire life, and I've been eligible to vote probably a whole bunch more. But I've only voted 2 times, and the one time I voted in a general election, um, on my New York on my ballot, I live in New York. There were 3 judges on there, and they were running unopposed, and I thought that was like, I guess it was a rare thing, but in fact, it really isn't. Local election participation has been going down. It's actually dropped 18 points from a modern peak in 2008, which of course, President Obama's election drawed a lot of voters, so I guess a lot of people were fighting for those seats, but it's dropped by 18 percentage points. So like we have way less like options in many districts. Like 43%, like that's dangerously close to half of the districts that are just completely like one guy's running, and unless you write in like South Park, that guy's gonna win. Like it's insane. So like I wanted to have just a discussion about like what can we do about this. Lucy, do you have any ideas other than like running yourself?
Uh, Fuck it, just get people out there to run. Like I don't know who this guy is. I've only met him. Not even met him. I've only heard of him like one time, like I said. Like his face looks familiar from the picture, but maybe I had seen him around town or something. I don't know. But it's craziness. It's absolutely crazy. And it's not going to get better until people decide that they want it to get better. And they're going to go out there and they're going to run and they're going to campaign and they're going to say, hey, vote for me because I'm a fresh breath air. And it's beyond me. And it almost makes me wonder, like, what if some of these people were like, nah, I don't want to do this anymore. I quit. Like, that means that there's whole areas that are not being represented anywhere. Anywhere. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, that's the amazing thing. I actually looked into my representative a little bit. By the way, my state senator and my state assemblywoman both ran uncontested this go around. But my assemblywoman is an interesting case. Like I checked out. I'm not gonna give her a name so you guys can look me up. But I'm in New York, so you guys know that. But I don't want you to find my neighborhood. But yeah, she only has like 2,000 Twitter followers, and she actually ran. I believe she ran uncontested her first time, and she's been elected one or two more times after that. She was on the staff of the guy of another guy, and I looked into him, and he was running uncontested. In New York, of the 150 state assembly seats, about 50 of them were just completely uncontested races. And like obviously, I live in a primarily Democratic state, and maybe you guys are like, well, that's a win for the Democrats. Like that's great, but a lot of you guys are in red states. Like I was busting Arkansas's balls the other day, but Jordan is like a real, true believing progressive, and like he wouldn't be happy if some like crazy right winger was running unopposed in his district. Like it's amazing. I know Jeff actually has competitive districts. This is like random, but just from me and him discussing elections in the past, so he's the lucky one, I guess. But like a lot of us, we don't have any choices at the local level, and a lot of laws get passed at the local level. Like, so is this really a democracy? Is what I'm asking, or is this really a republic, a democratic republic? If we only have, if our districts are uncompetitive in the first place, and so uncompetitive they don't even have opponents.
I think the governments only work as well as the people let them work. We, the people, give the governments the power. Like, all the founding fathers realized that, and they're like, oh, whenever the people decide that they're going to take the power back, well, then they're going to take the power back. But I have to say, to your point about New York being primarily Democratic, Democrat, this state was redder than a fucking new baby's behind or something. Like, this state was really fucking red. It's not even funny. Like, I was looking at the map on Politico, and it was like one blue spot over here near Rochester, maybe a couple of blue spots up near the Canadian border, couple in New York City, and then everything else was fucking red, like beat ass red.
I gotta jump in with like devastating numbers, and I was guessing from me and Jeff's conversations that Michigan was good in competition. 100% of Michigan's races were competitive, like or not competitive, but had an actual opponent. Like we're not even asking for competitive right now. But I just found some absolutely devastating numbers, and I really can't wait to read it to you guys. So the number one state with the were Michigan, 100% in the state house and 100% in the state senate. Then Maine, Minnesota, and then you drop under nine. Or Maine, Minnesota, Hawaii. Then you drop under 90%. You want to know what the least competitive state is? If you're in any of these states, run for office. Like the state of Georgia, 18.33% of their house races were contested. Like if you're in the state of Georgia, run for the state house. Like at least if you're on a minimum wage salary, at least it's a pay increase. Your total contested races were only 20%. That means 80% of the races were just step right this way. All you had to do was get your name on the ballot. South Carolina was right after that. Just a quarter of their races were contested. Rhode Island was 30% of the races. Texas, the state of Texas, like 30% of their races are competitive. Wyoming, 30%. Oklahoma, 38%. Massachusetts, 38%. Florida, 39%. Arkansas, Jordan, hello. 39% of your races are competitive, and Vermont rounds out the bottom 10 with 40% of their races being competitive. Like, if you live in any of these states and you want change, chances are you only got to punch one guy in the face. Like, if you run in the opposing party, there's no primary. Like, there's nobody running.
Well, you did make a good point. If you have a shitty job, maybe it's time to just be like, hey, world, my area, I'm gonna go ahead and take this assembly position right here, and no one else is gonna run for it, so fuck it. And then just be like every other government official, just sort of get in there and be like, I don't have to do nothing. I'm gonna get paid anyway, so. That kind of makes me want to, like, go to, like, the really poor, like, labor department and be like, hey, did you know that if you run unopposed, you're pretty much guaranteed the job and pretty nice salary?
I mean, in the Texas legislature, you actually don't make that much money because you're really part-time, but, like, go represent your state. Like, it's crazy. Like, it's actually pissing me off that I'm, like, looking for candidates or somebody. Like, somebody's got to run in these races. Like, New York wasn't in the bottom 10, but we weren't in the top 10 of competitive races. Like, I don't know how Michigan is so quote unquote. I don't know how Michigan's so quote unquote awesome when they have 100% of the races are competitive. But Jesus, like, you're wondering why the South doesn't change? There's nobody trying to affect change on the local level. All these Republicans, all these ones that you see, every time you see a crazy state legislator or somebody like that on the Young Turks main show, or we cover it on here, just remember, keep this in your head, that nationally there is a 43% chance that they're going to be unopposed in their next election. So if you want to laugh at the clips, that's awesome. But if you want actual change, run in that district. Get somebody to run in that district. Like, the democracy or republic or self-governance is not a spectator sport. Like, I don't endorse voting, but I do endorse running for office. That's
I think you're right. I think it's really important to get people out there and, really, really encourage them. Like, hey, you really want to see change? Nobody's really running against this person. This person's been in office for X number of years and nothing's changed here in this area. Like, I live in a really poor area. Like, my area is about 50% of the population lives below poverty, and it seems like more of the jobs are leaving, so that's going to easily bump up to like 70%. Like, like, we're a very poor area, and it makes me angry because I'm just like, dang, like, this guy, I've never even really seen him or know anything about him, and he's run unopposed, and he's been there for at least 4 years because I do vaguely remember him at my high school. So it's just makes me so sad. It makes me not just sad, it just makes me angry.
and honestly, it doesn't take that many votes to overthrow these guys. Like, I looked up what it takes to win in New York City, right? That's where I live. We have the biggest media market ever. What it takes to win a local campaign for assembly person, it's only $25,000. Like, 25. That sounds like, in our modern day politics, like, that sounds like outrageous. But $25,000 you can get from small donors, and if you get that, then because of our public financing system, you'll get about $100,000, and that's enough to win a local race in my state. I live in the richest state of the union, or not the richest state in the union, but one of the most expensive states in terms of media in the union. And, like, that's statistically what it takes to win. So, like, what are you doing? Get out, go run, go win, or go endorse somebody to win. Like, do you want the Wolfpack resolution passed? Like, part of the reason that these guys are probably won't pass it is because they literally have nothing to fear. Like, there's nobody there. Like, Jane talks about all the state legislatures who are sick of raising money, and that's totally true. But 43% of them don't have to raise a dime because they don't got an opponent. So get out there and run.
Here's what I say. Sean, you run for your area, I'll run for my area. We'll meet in Albany. We'll start handing out throw punches. Just left and right. We'll get this stuff done. We'll take care of this.
Well, I mean, that sounds like a great plan, but Jeff has enough clips on me that if he ever wanted to remove me from office, even if I won, he could totally do that. And you, the last time we were on a show together, said that you are going angry Muslim mode, and you also admitted to voting for Vladimir Putin. So, much done in American politics.
Look,
Sorry.
let me put it this way. What if Vladimir Putin decided tomorrow, hey, I won this election in Oswego County. I'm going to go work there instead of be the leader of Mother Russia. You don't know. It could have happened. It could have happened.
He probably could, and people would be like, "How come we can't get rid of this guy?" I'm like, because there's nobody running against him. Like this isn't even like Russia where like maybe the other person will get assassinated. If you run against like some of these guys, you'll be totally fine. Like I might do it as a publicity stunt for this show. Like run the most asshole campaign ever. I'm just saying it's a possibility. Not really, don't quote me to that. But anyway, especially since saying it's a publicity stunt is bad. So if you have final thoughts, let's hear them. And that's why I can never run for office because clips like that. If you have any final thoughts, I'm ready to hear them, and I could close out the show maybe. But Jeff didn't give me a script for that, so I'm gonna make stuff up.
Are we going to do questions? No? Okay. But to my throat punching platform, just saying, it's a pretty good platform.
Well, actually, if you guys have questions, sorry to interrupt. If you guys have questions, just put them in the chat right quick. Like I haven't been monitoring it. Maybe Jeff has, the ghost of Jeff. So if he wants to feed them to us, that's cool. But yeah, Lucy, I'm sorry for interrupting, but go ahead.
Oh, you're good. You're good. No, but like I'm just gonna say, if you don't like it, vote. If it doesn't work when you vote, go out there and take their job. Clearly, the only way shit gets done is if you, I don't know, kick them to the curb. Be like, oh, you were ineffective. You didn't do what we wanted. You didn't listen to the people. You're gone. Tough titties. Tough titties.
And like, all right, I just want to close out. Like, it's a sad state. It's a sad state in America where the things I say to kind of be an asshole are actually right. Like, I said voting in my district was completely pointless. Literally was pointless. Like, half the races, or more than half the races, were uncontested. Like, I what you call it. So it's sad, and I would say run if you want to run for New York State office. That's $79,000 a year. If you want, I mean, if you consider yourself a Wolfpack volunteer or like, why not introduce the legislation yourself? Like, you can do that. Like, these races are, like, if you kick somebody who want to run as the opposing party, then you're going to coast to a victory. Like, so I say get out there and run. It's actually tragic, whichever party. And as you saw in the names of the states that I read off, it's a lot of red states. So, what? Oh, somebody asked me with the latter. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I read Jeff's thing. So yeah, to close out this story, run for office, or honestly, stop complaining. Like voting is pointless, and I hate it as a engine for change. But running for office is definitely better. And I realize one depends on the other, but ignore that logical distinction. So we're wrapping this segment, and we'll take some questions. And no more donations. I actually saw this question. Asked me if I lived on a bunk bed or if I was on a bunk bed or a loft. Unfortunately, I've already told people on air that this is in fact a bunk bed. If I thought it looked like a loft on video, I would have lied and said it was a loft because that's kind of cool. So in future episodes, I will say it's a loft, but in reality, it's not. I'm not that cool. Any more questions?
Let's see. Polly asks, oh, I think I see the question. Do you think repugs will be able to pass anything they want now, even if Obama vetoes? Will they have the power to override? Yeah. Like, that's what happens when you control the majority, my friends.
I'll just point out they don't have the power to override a veto. But what I would do if I was the Republicans, like, because you're assuming President Obama will veto your repeal of Obamacare and all that stupid crap, is I would actually restore the filibuster rules and run on that you restored the Senate to the way it was supposed to be, and like you're not partisan hacks like the Democrats, even though the Republicans are totally partisan hacks. But you're not going to pass your repeal of Obamacare anyway. Like the only thing you might be afraid of is somebody filibustering like a grand bargain, like Bernie Sanders or somebody like that. So I would just I would what you call it. I think they're not going to be able to pass everything they want, depending on how the rules of the Senate, and the president will veto it, hopefully, depending on the bill. If either of we got a question from Tree Espazio or Tree Espazo. I'm just making up whatever your name is. It's Try
Ooh.
Espazo asks, if either of you took office, what would you do to fix the system? I'll let Lucy take that. I talk too much.
I would actually have a lot of plans. I would start pushing to invest in infrastructure, invest in colleges and schools. I would also start pushing for a wolf pack. I guess it depends what level of office I took, but either way, I would start making a name for myself, and I'd just start throwing out my throw punches, like left and right, like, hey, shut your face hole. I'm right, you're wrong.
How about we go with I'm going to take this question as offices I'm technically qualified for, and since I'm under 25, that's nothing in the federal government. All right, so if I run for a state legislative position or a city council position, I would push for an amendment similar to the Wolfpack Amendment. I don't agree entirely with the Wolfpack Amendment, but basically my amendment would allow the states to regulate their own campaign finance laws, like a novel concept. Like, and you can limit donations to individual candidates and all that. But like that's a lame fucking answer, and I'm actually getting sick of hearing the wolf-pack.com. No offense, you should totally support that. But I would come prepared. Like I would go after Time Warner Cable and Comcast, regional cable monopolies. I would go after all kinds of ridiculous monopolies, because if you get on the news and you have a public like you get public about these ridiculous laws that nobody talks about, and you're not bought up, like the people will come along with you. Like people in New York know in their heart that it's fucking ridiculous that you have to pay $1 million for a medallion to drive a fucking taxi cab. Like if you beat people over the head with the issues, like use the bully pulpit, then that's how you win, and that's what I would go for. We have another question.
Wait, that's why. Wait, really quick.
Go ahead.
That's why I said. Well, that's why I said, like, I would, if I really got into like a state level, I would start pushing to invest in infrastructure and to invest in schools. Like those are two major issues that I really do. Infrastructure creates jobs. Schools create smarter people. It's kind of win-win.
Well, I wouldn't invest in schools, but that's my own personal bias against little kids. That's another thing. I would run against little kids, right? I'm not even saying, like, let me just flesh this out, because I don't have Jeff to mute me. Like little kids are used in politics to take your personal freedom. If you see a politician with a kid next to him at a bill signing, that law is meant to restrict the freedom of adults in the name of protecting children. Like that's what I mean when nobody likes little kids. Like nobody likes little kids because they're technically the symbol of tyranny. Like let's keep it fucking real. All right, I got a question from No More Donations. Do you think Obama let TPP go through like we know he will, or do you think he'll fight it? I like the answering the question within the question. TPP is the Trans-Pacific Partnership. You could take that one, Lucy.
Is that the pipeline? Yes? No? Yes?
No, it's the trade agreements, like the trade agreements that are very heavily favored toward corporations. I'm just saying I think they will go through in one form or another.
I don't know. This is the first time I heard about them.
Oh, this
but
is a great.
If
this
they,
is, I'll let you finish.
favor,
But we have a great question.
yeah, if they favor corporations, I see them going through.
No, but like these trade agreements are like especially like fucked up because corporations write them, and our legislators aren't even allowed to look at them at the federal level. Or they look at them, but they can't take any notes or whatever. and they're like thousands of pages, and they go into a room, and they're like, you have an hour to look at it. Like, if I was the Congress, I would not ratify those treaties based on the fact that I could be signing away a lot of fucking power. So like, I hope they are that principled, but they're not. I hope they're that self-interested, but I think they're more like concerned with immediate payoff. All right, this is a great question. Joe asked, would either of you pretend to be a Christian or more religious than you are? Or I'm just gonna change it to, would you pretend to be a Christian or any religious group, or act like a more religious person if you thought it could get you into political office? I'm gonna let Lucy answer that one first.
Nope. Nope. I don't. This is the thing that bugs me. I don't think my religious beliefs should have anything to do with my political stance. Like, if my religion believed it was okay to punch babies in the face, that's my religion. That's my religious belief. Am I going to pass legislation that says, hey, every Tuesday, it's going to be required by law to punch babies in the face because my religion says so? I don't think religion has any place in politics.
Okay, so I've actually thought about this. As many of you know, normally wear a cross around my neck. Actually, agnostic. The cross is given to me as a gift, and I'm Irish, and a lot of Irish symbols are like Catholic symbols, like a cross, like it's a Celtic cross. But I'm not religious at all, so I wouldn't say anything, right? Like, I wouldn't run as like the loudest atheist in the world. But if somebody asked me what about that cross and how come I'm not a part of any church, I would say these specific words, and you can quote me on that if I ever run for office. I would say the reason I bought this is because the uppercase T's were too expensive. And then the follow-up question would be, why would you want an uppercase T? And I'm like, because I worship the mighty Thor. Yes, so that is my guarantee to everybody that if I'm ever asked that question, I will set up and knock that shit out with my Thor.
I love that answer.
I put a lot of thought into it. Okay, Pauly69s, I hope consensually, asks, do you think Pastor Manning is correct when he says sodomites gather at Starbucks and put gay Ebola semen in the coffee? I'm gonna say Pastor Manning's a pretty trustworthy source and say that actually is the case. Like, literally every Starbucks has Ebola semen, and for some reason in New York City, where there are 18 Starbucks per block, nobody new has contracted Ebola in a while. Of course, that's not real, and I get why somebody asked the question because YouTube. I don't get why Jeff posted that question in my viewing thing.
Let me just say, Pastor Manning is wrong. It's not the sodomites. It's ISIS. ISIS is putting Ebola semen in our coffee.
This is true.
There was a memo about it. I saw it on the internet.
This is true. ISIS had sex with Ebola to transmit it to our Starbucks. And Dunkin' Donuts, for that matter. Although, if you really think about it, isn't the difference between Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks the difference between Democrats and Republicans? Like, your liberals and conservatives? Like, they both sell a shit ton of coffee. One of them has donuts. The other one has fancy-ass, like, croissants. Like, think about that for a second.
I feel like this is like the start to a video. Like, how Dunkin' Donuts v. Starbucks is Democrats v. Republicans.
Oh, and by the way, let me just add that Dunkin' Donuts is the leading coffee seller in the United States. So just like the Democrats a couple of Tuesdays ago, Starbucks is getting their ass kicked. But at least they're competitive. It's competitive.
Let me just say, I fucking love Tim Hortons, but I refuse to shop there now because of stupid Burger King. But I absolutely love Tim Hortons. They were the best.
Oh, okay. So this is a question that I'm getting from Empyrean Cipher. He said it's Gold's question. Oh, he's aggregating questions for us. So this question is from Gold. If the system of elections could be changed, pause for clarification. Say if we abolish the electoral college, would you then feel like your vote would matter? No, if the electoral college like was removed, I would feel like my vote mattered even less because I know that my one vote is totally not going to tip the scales for one candidate or the other. So yeah, to me it would matter less, less. Yeah, I'm gonna go with should I get more fries or less? Yes.
I'm
What do you
actually
think?
gonna say the opposite. I feel like my vote would matter more. Because I don't know, since I've been alive, there have been a couple of times where somebody's won the popular election, but they didn't win the electoral college, so they lost. And like the whole idea of the electoral college was because John Adams thought that the average American was a fucking moron. He was right. He was definitely right about that, but it was made because he didn't think he could trust the average American to vote correctly.
Well, I mean,
So,
look at their choices the past couple go arounds. I mean, we have
yeah, I mean,
decades of or almost a decade of horrible choices, or maybe 2 decades. I don't know. How do you want to count the Bush? But anyway, honestly, I think it would matter less if you changed the electoral college and made it a percentage thing, where like you have a certain percentage, then actually that's the only way that I think that statistically it would matter more. But you would have to, in like fairness, change all the states at the same time. And since election laws are typically handled by the states, that would be fucking impossible unless you got a constitutional amendment. So yeah, I think that would be too difficult. Or that would be the only way. Also, I want to answer a question that's not asked, but I see this all the time on Real Time with Bill Maher, so I'm going to answer that. We get a lot of talk about the Senate, how some bigger states should get 3 senators, and Bill Maher thinks we should amend the Constitution to achieve this objective. Um, that's basically not possible because in order to get rid of the even representation of senators, you not only have to get a supermajority, you have to get a unanimous consent. It says in the Constitution that no state shall be deprived of equal representation in the Senate without their own consent. So that is fucking impossible. It's a pipe dream, and fuck California and like fuck Texas for that matter, and New York. I live here. Fuck this place. Like the big states should not have a bigger say in the Senate. Like we have a bicameral House for a reason. We're supposed to have proportional representation and then equal representation in terms of statehood. So I'm answering a question that's not answered because we got an election law. Any other questions or
I think you hit the nail on the head with that one.
um? Thank you. Oh, somebody asked about a foot fetish, but I'm not gonna answer that. Like to each his own is my answer to that. But like if I couldn't run for office already, like that would kill my chances.
Don't look at my feet; they're dirty.
I can't see them actually kind of glitchy a little bit. All right, are we ready to close up shop, or is there another question that you see that I don't see?
Let me check.
See, I'm not like Jeff. I actually read the shitty fake questions. I just don't answer them. Like, states run all elections, even federal parts, like presidential elections. Okay, so Gayla actually asked a technical question. Basically, you have certain limits from like the Voting Rights Act and from like civil rights type laws, but for the most part, elections, this is voting machines, ballots, everything, how to get on the ballot, like the different requirements, all of that is regulated by the individual states. And it's actually really different in a lot of states. That's why some have early voting, some don't. And if you're asking yes for federal election, yes for federal election. The only thing I think the federal government, besides like voting rights issues, has supremacy over in terms of election law is campaign finance stuff. Like the Congress traditionally has regulated their own. their own campaign finance requirements, and that's federal. But in general, the rules are determined by individual states. Little fun factoid. Any other
Ooh.
questions?
I
Dude, I
feel
had
like we need a song every time we like
oh
bust out a factoid.
Jeff has a closing song thing, but
I
I'm ready.
think that's it.
I'm ready to wrap up the show. I
Me
just want
too.
to
It's getting hot.
true. I just want to thank everybody for joining us. Not outside. We're both in New York. It's actually getting cold outside, but your heat's on. I'm assuming.
I actually have a foot of snow. I don't know about you, but
Now
I
I'm
do.
ready to look out the window. All right, so I want to thank I want to thank everybody for joining us. It's my first time hosting. I know I stumbled a little bit early and through most of the show, and I know I actually couldn't have been as much of an asshole as I normally am because I'm not driving the segment. Like a nicer, more politer person would say that they had a new appreciation for Jeff Waldorf and what he does, and he really does a great job. But I'm just not that like polite, and I'm too much of a dick to say I have a new appreciation for him. Thank you guys for all joining us. There'll be links below to like the Patreon page. Please subscribe. Please like. It totally helps. Also share the videos. Come back. Check out the clips. Tweet about them. Tweet me about them. I'm at IronSean90. Tweet Jeff about him. Tell him to get better. He's at Jeff's Politics. All our Twitter handles we put everywhere because that's how YouTube works. And I just want to thank you guys all for joining us and donate to our Patreon campaign, which there'll be links for it somewhere. Lucy, always a pleasure to have you on. It's always a pleasure to have you on when I'm hosting. Do you want to say any goodbye words to the family? Like, I'm not to the family, to the audience who are our family.
To our New York family, I hope you bastards get snow down there in New York City. I think you deserve it. Tired of being the only one having here in Central New York, but it's okay. It's okay. No, it was actually a really fun show. I think you did a really good job. Got to stroke his ego a little bit, I guess. No, but it was a good show. Had fun. Hope everybody had fun.
I was saying plug your Twitter or your tweeter. It's at DBA18, and you can follow Lucy on there. You can stalk her. You can tweet stuff at her. Sometimes she tells you where she is on her location settings. You should just show up and see her. I don't even know if that's the case, but you totally shouldn't do that. And that's not funny. Yeah, follow her on Twitter, not in real life. Unless you want them to, Lucy. I don't know.
I don't know. You know what? I don't know. Like, maybe soon I'll be out of this country for a little while, so.
Okay, still not. You should have just said no. I can't like have one person, both of us joking about that. Don't follow Lucy. Don't follow me in real life. Follow us on Twitter. Much better, much safer. Everybody wish Jeff well, and make sure you tweet him cards with like little cats hanging on clotheslines saying "Hang in there." Thank you guys for joining us. I had a lot of fun hosting it. Jeff, drop that music.
Bye, guys. Yum, 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 yum.